Let's podcast alongside Joe Giglio. I'm Joe Ovias inside the Eford Studios, downtown Raleigh. Thanks to Empire Properties and thanks to Copiers Plus. Check them out online at copiers-plus.com. This is something that we're finding out as a small business. Is our year technically over?
December.
Wait, when does our fiscal year close?
We're like everybody else.
Oh, we're like everybody else?
We're done in December.
Okay. I just wanted, but December will be here before you know it, which means,
trust me,
you might want to look at where your costs are, and an easy way to save money is on print management, and Copiers Plus can help you with that. Check them out online at copiers-plus.com. I'm not sure Copiers Plus can help with quarterback management right now with the Carolina Panthers. There's plenty of NFL things to get into. Another doubleheader last night on Monday Night Football, which kind of speaks to a larger trend so far 3 weeks into the season with really lack of offense. It's been kind of a
I also don't
offensive start to the year.
I don't like the simultaneous Monday night doubleheaders.
Why not?
I would prefer it to be like 7 and 10.
Oh,
or 6:30 and 10.
Do an East Coast game and a West Coast game?
Yeah, I don't like I'm going to start a game at 7:30 and then another one at 8:15. It's like, don't overload me.
It is big. Okay? It is big NCAA tournament Thursday, Friday.
I don't need
vibes.
that.
Yeah.
I don't need no. Those are the two greatest days in sports now, sir.
So hold on. So what if, but
I don't like them at the same time.
But we do that every Sunday.
Sunday night and Monday night should be single games. Those are the two games of the week I watch. Seriously.
Sunday night and Monday night?
Seriously. For all these years, when you cover college football the way that I did for 20 years, you work on Sunday.
Yeah.
So the Sunday night game is the one game where you're like, okay, I'm going to sit down and watch an NFL game. Mm-hmm. The Monday night game is the same way. You sit down, you watch game. Like last night, I'm sitting here like, well, should I watch Tampa? I got the running back is on my fantasy team. The Eagles have been on like 100 times. So I'm like, I'm already tired of watching the Eagles and their stupid Bush push or the Hurts flirts or whatever the heck they're calling it.
The tush push.
Yeah. Well, no, Notre Dame is the USC is the
with
one
the Reggie Bush.
Originally had the Bush push.
Yes.
And now it's like, I can't handle watching the Eagles at this point. Also, like, I feel like Andy Reid broke the Eagles. Why everyone just doesn't use, cloud motions against them, I don't know. Like, just confuse them. That's all you got to do. Like, they're broken. Okay. So I really wanted to watch the Bengals. Of course,
Joe Burrow is hurt.
I fell asleep in the first quarter.
Yeah, I was wondering why you were texting me at 4:30 in the morning.
And I was already up for an hour.
And I thought to myself, I'm like, what the hell is wrong with Joe that he's texting me at 4:30 in the morning?
I just want to watch one game,
but you can't even
lock in.
You can't even stay awake to watch one game. So what are you bitching about?
Sunday I did though.
Oh, okay, good for you.
Yeah,
slow clap. That you actually watched some Sunday night football.
I watched the first half.
All right. Well, you know what? Let's punt on the Panthers for now, since we're on the topic of the NFL in general.
Yeah,
and.
Is there an NFL or is it all just
it's all Taylor? It's all like, I was watching the Monday night broadcast on ABC. I was watching the Eagles game. And they had, you had a Kelsey and you had a Swift. So they immediately put it up on the screen and you could tell Joe Buck was like, what the hell are we doing here? He's like, we've got Swift and Kelsey here too. Anyway, a lot of conversation around Taylor Swift and like, shout out to Jaden, who's new at the News and Observer. Yeah. She covers NC State. Guess she's a Swiftie. And we got to talk to Jaden soon. And she did like, hey, Swifties who are new to football, because, you got to follow everything Taylor Swift does. Here are some basics about football. I've actually seen some Spotify tailgate playlists that are now incorporating Taylor Swift because, well, if she's riding with Travis Kelce, well, then we got to include her in our tailgate playlist, right?
You can laugh, but how many times have we had a conversation about the generation younger than your brother, older than my son? Right?
Yeah.
Like, how do you hook them? How do you get them here?
This is how you do it.
And
the NFL, like
as Jordan Kramer said yesterday on our program, like, hey, they're trying to get younger and they're trying to get women. You want to do that? Here's one big giant box that you can check.
And I do think that if you want to get away from the Taylor Swift stuff, I can tell that some of our listeners might be rolling their eyes at this. Shout out to Fred, who doesn't really want any Taylor Swift conversations. It does tell you something about the current state of this season. When ratings have been fine right now, but a couple years ago, there was a ratings decline because offensively, the NFL was not producing.
Yeah.
And then what did we see in the pandemic? right?
Oh,
We got to get people to watch. You always point this out. We got to get people to watch.
Oh, we are not calling a penalty, sir.
I'm wondering.
There will be no holding in this game.
I am wondering when we're going to get to pandemic rules, because in the first 3 weeks of the season, the story has been defense and how defenses have adjusted to these high-flying offenses, with the exception of one team, which we'll get to in a second. And there's also injuries too. Like, look, Aaron Rodgers is done for the year, and they're stuck with Zach Wilson.
What a mess.
Joe Burrow's hurt. He's clearly hurt.
He's laboring.
All right. And, Jalen Hurts last night is kind of falling back down to earth a little bit. The Eagles are undefeated, but they're clearly not, and their schedule's a little bit more difficult, I would think, compared to last year. And I think it's kind of coming home to roost right now. But the story really is, outside of the Dolphins, who have been this high-flying offense, and maybe Mike McDaniel has figured out the glitch in the matrix, everybody else has adjusted.
Well, how mad is the NFL? And I get it that they won it last year. I totally get it. I was wrong about that. How mad is the NFL, though, that the Chiefs were like, nah, we don't need to pay Tyreek Hill. Nah, we're good. Like, seriously.
Oh, well, what do you mean?
I get it. And I understand what I'm saying right now, but what are the Dolphins without Tyreek Hill?
I mean, they're a decent team. He is the MVP.
I mean,
Tyreek Hill is the MVP. And
we're sitting here saying how much, and we could tie this into Bryce Young, but we're saying how much value this guy makes.
Yes.
Everything that the Dolphins have done.
Totally
work.
That. Totally on that.
So if you're the Chiefs, you're sitting here going, yeah, he's not worth it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like in my brain, the Chiefs should have built a dome like 5 years ago. They should have put the thing like temporary ad hoc up to win this thing. And I get it. They've won 2 of them with this guy, but they should have all of them with Mahomes.
I mean,
they should have all. They should have Brady numbers with this guy. And to give him away the way that they did.
Yeah. I think it's a combination of things.
Right?
I think it's a combination of things. I think it's the skill of Hill, and I also think it's what McDaniel is doing with the Dolphins.
A perfect marriage of all those things.
Right. I don't know if Tyreek Hill would have been putting up these numbers.
And they're putting up all this other speed too. Like I saw this tweet of like, here are the fastest players of miles per hour. And it was it was Mostert, it was A-Chain, it was Hill, and you're like, oh.
So
it reminded me of Butch Davis, when he got here to Chapel Hill.
Yeah.
Eddie Landreth, RIP, man, was like, Butch, you practically invented putting fast people on defense. And it's like, Mike McDaniel, you practically invented putting fast people at skill positions. What?
Yeah,
you get fast on
That's a pretty good Eddie Landreth. RIP. Okay. After 2 weeks and the Dallas Cowboys were running hot, there was a debate on National Sports Talk Radio about Micah Parsons as the early season MVP. Totally get that. And Evan Roberts, who's now doing the morning show on ESPN Radio, was like, that's ludicrous because the quarterback is the most important position. Micah Parsons, there's scales to this. And to a certain degree, I do agree with what he's getting at, okay? The most important player on the field for your success or failure ultimately is the quarterback. 9 times out of 10. However, what we've seen out of Tyreek Hill and what the Miami Dolphins are doing with that speed and how important he is to making that offense go, how can you sit here with a straight face and tell me that Tyreek Hill is not the early season MVP? If this continues, he has to win MVP because once you eliminate him from their roster, what are the Dolphins, to your point? The Dolphins are a good team, but they're not a Super Bowl contender without Tyreek Hill. Straight up, they are not a Super Bowl contender. And I'm not trying to say Tua Tagovailoa is this mirage of a quarterback. He's a good quarterback. You do need somebody to be your conductor, all right? Which is what, when we tie it back to Bryce Young, the best case scenario, that is what he can be. But you have to put that around him. And the Dolphins, ironically enough, the Dolphins are in a weird situation coming out of this game with the Denver Broncos because the guy on the other side of the field was the coach that Stephen Ross ultimately wanted. Remember, the Dolphins would have more draft picks had it not been for the tampering related to Sean Payton and Tom Brady. It's also Sean Payton, as many people have pointed out, the same guy who was in the Fox broadcast saying, yeah, Tua Tagovailoa is not going to finish the year as the quarterback for the Miami Dolphins. Concussions aside, this is going to be Teddy Bridgewater's team. So you don't think Tua Tagovailoa is looking across the road? Oh, as Mike Tanier pointed out, ironically enough, Tua Tagovailoa did not finish the game for the Miami Dolphins against Sean Payton because they sat him because they didn't need him, right? And right now, Sean Payton's been, all the receipts on Sean Payton have been brought out this season. He didn't need to go so hard in the paint with Nathaniel Hackett. I had zero issues with Sean Payton saying what he said in that GQ interview because I think it's perfectly okay to be honest about stuff. And Nathaniel Hackett was in over his head. The only reason why he got that job was because the Denver Broncos thought they could pull Aaron Rodgers, his boy, and that obviously failed. But if you're going to talk that shit, you got to back it up. And what's wild is 3 weeks into the season, it's not about Russell Wilson. This is how bad Sean Payton has been for the Denver Broncos. That the whole man, Russ is washed. He's got to fix Russ. We can pin all the issues on Russ Wilson just not having it anymore. The real issue is they can't stop anybody. 70 points is an indictment. 35 points against the Washington Commanders the week before is another indictment on this defense. That's the biggest problem right now with Denver, and that's on Sean Payton.
You could tie it all together by saying, you want to talk about Parsons? Fine. You want to talk about TyreekHill? Fine. You got to have guys who make plays.
Yeah.
You have to have difference makers. If everybody in the NFL is all of the same, right? If every scheme is pretty much the same, if every team, all the designs are the same, well, guess what? You got to have guys who can make plays. That could be a quarterback. Please don't get me wrong.
Of course.
And most of the time it usually is. But just here, let's go to the Panthers now. Okay. And then you have to ask yourself, how do you get difference makers? Like TyreekHill was problematic legal issue wise in college. Okay. So he was a bargain basement price for the Chiefs coming out of college. Those are one in a million, right? Like you're just not going to get players like that way. Normally you get difference makers at the top of the draft, right? And so let's look at the Panthers. When I say top of the draft, let's just say first round. Okay. If you go 17, 18, 19 with the Panthers, first round, CMC 1-8. 20 and 18, DJ Moore 124, 19, Brian Birds 116. Top 25 picks in the case of CMC, top 10. Those three guys are difference makers, right? McCaffrey, Moore, Burns.
Yeah.
Last 4 years now, okay, all top 10 picks. Fine. Take Bryce Young out of it. Icky 1-6, Horn 1-8, Derek Brown 1-7. What are they in those four picks? Like you got to have difference makers. So if you're not going to draft the difference makers, then you have to go out and buy them or hope that the Chiefs are having a fire sale.
Yeah.
Right. So to me, I look at it like, okay, Micah Parsons, first round pick, made that you hit a home run with that. They didn't, that wasn't a hope and a guess and cross your fingers. Jamar Chase, who we saw last night, top 10. That wasn't,
they knew what they were getting. They knew what they were doing with
so that. When you look at the NFL, we could sit here and argue about quarterbacks all we want. And if the Jets go out and get Kirk Cousins, which I think would be awesome, because I would rather see the Jets make a move and say, I know they made one for Aaron Rodgers, but I would if you're the Jets right now, you're sitting here going, we're just going to give up on the season. All right. How is that not a win-win for both the Vikings and the Jets?
A couple of things.
Because he's walking away. They're not going to sign him next. Cousins is not going to sign with Minnesota next year.
No, he's not going to sign with Minnesota next year. And obviously, with Minnesota, they were 11-0 in one-score games.
Oh, they were a statistical anomaly last year. If you look at their point differential, there's no way they should have ever won 11 football games.
Yeah, they somehow would come back and win these really close, tight games. They were 11-0 in games decided by like a point, essentially, right? Or 3 points or less. And this year, they're 0-3. In the same,
which everyone predicted, yes.
Same situations. Yes. Like, the razor has now, gone the other way for the Minnesota Vikings. And Kirk Cousins is a perfectly fine quarterback, but he is not a difference maker.
Well,
to
he's
help
not Justin
team.
Jefferson, right?
But here's
which
then gets to the Jets. All right. What do the Jets have right now? They have a terrible offensive line.
Their offensive line is not good, but
their defense is not what Robert Saleh has been like. Look,
no, not against the Cowboys.
Not against the Cowboys. So right now, I'm not quite sure who's out there that's going to ultimately help the Jets. So the Jets, by the way, have played some top tier defenses along the way too.
But isn't this the same thing as we say to the Hurricanes?
They played the Bills, the Cowboys, and the Patriots. And whatever you want to say about Bill Belichick,
those offenses are pretty good.
Now, but again, my point here with the Bills, great defense. Cowboys, what have we been talking about? And the Patriots, regardless of what you think about Bill Belichick being washed or making the wrong decisions on offense, we know that defensively, Bill Belichick is always going to cook something up, and they still almost won that game. But their offensive line is not very good. Their skill position players have not stepped up the way they thought. In a weird sort of low-key way.
Have the ball.
Dude, low-key way. Aaron Rodgers is the best thing that could have happened to him was be done for the season because it would have been exposed this year with the Jets. It would have been a dumpster fire 3 weeks in the year. I'm telling you. Maybe they don't lose these games. Maybe they win one of these games with Aaron Rodgers, but they would not look good. And I'm not quite sure who's out there that's going to help them.
I feel like trading for Cousins is the same thing that we've argued about the Carolina Hurricanes.
Okay.
When you make a move, you're signaling to the team, we're going for this. We're not just going to sit here and roll over 3 games into the season.
I got you.
I would not give up a first-round pick for Kirk Cousins. No. But I would absolutely trade for Kirk Cousins if I was the Jets right now.
So Denver and Chicago are playing next.
Oh, they are.
I believe that's the next. Those 2 teams are next. Is this an
What do you do if you're Denver? What do you do if you're Denver? Because Russ, you're crippled by his deal.
Yeah.
And Sean clearly hasn't been able to save him, snap his fingers and save him.
No. I mean, you gave
defensively when they won. Remember, it was Von Miller and Bradley Chubb, and they had some other guys in the secondary who could make plays. What do they have right now? You want to ask about what do the Jets have? What do the Panthers have?
Yeah, what do the
Broncos? You just gave up 70 points,
and they also gave up picks to get this guy.
That's what I'm saying.
So
you're in a bad way.
You're screwed. But much like the Carolina Panthers, we can sit here and point at Russell Wilson. We can point at Sean Payton, who's making the decisions ultimately.
Sure.
Right. And the same thing goes with the Carolina Panthers. Who's making the decisions, which we can get to a little bit of that conversation regarding Bryce Young here in a second.
Housekeeping. When we talk about the Panthers,
we're going to get to that.
Okay.
We're doing a full segment on the Panthers.
Oh, okay.
That's right. We got to it early. A little premature.
I had it. Panther.
So based here, if you look at my little notes here, I had Panthers first, but you took us. I let the conversation flow. So you were hyped to talk about. You've been up since 4:30 in the morning, and you were clearly hyped to be talking about some NFL general stuff. Cool. So what I did was I audibled Omaha. So I went, all right, we're going to do the NFL stuff first, and then if I could do my best Garth from Wayne's World, and then we'll get to the NFL. Speaking of the Carolina Panthers, check out Young Gun, new episode out now with Dimitri Romanos and Lauren Brownlow. They can't ask the question if Bryce Young was too short because he didn't play this past weekend. Will he play this upcoming weekend? Who knows? Maybe that will be the next topic. Also check out, I'm rocking the Skyhawks inspired podcast shirt today. Go check that out. Go to breakingt.com/OG. Again, that's breakingt.com/OG to buy your shirts today. Love what Breaking T's doing to help us out. They got a bunch of other great stuff too. Carolina Hurricanes, they got a preseason game tonight. Season's right around the corner. They got a whole bunch of Carolina Hurricanes gear. We have a Bad for Ratings t-shirt you can rock too. That's on breakingt.com/OG. Also, big thanks to Breeze Through. If you're already thinking about your Carolina Hurricanes tailgates, well, guess what? Breeze Through has a convenient location right across the way from PNC Arena. Walk into that beer cave and get it hooked up. Snacks too. Chips, all that kind of fun stuff. They got prepared sandwiches as well if you need it.
They have all of my beer flavored beers there.
We've helped them up their Crowler game or their Howler game.
That was you and Adam.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. We helped Adam.
919
Vice. Eshball. And I were helping Adam, all right, you need a beer flavored beer, you need an actual pale ale, maybe a wheat beer in there, and then we can start getting into the stouts and all that kind of stuff. Just have one of every style.
But you'd be surprised how many gas stations just have undrinkable beer.
Yeah, I agree. But Breeze Through gets it done. That's an amazing
selection.
Breeze Through gets it done. And also big thanks to Whitaker and Hamer. Check them out online, wh.lawyer. Attorneys and counselors at law. You have contracts you need drawn up. You're selling a house and you got to take that thing to closing. You're buying a house and you got to take that thing to closing. Maybe you're refinancing, got to take it to closing. Guess what? Whitaker and Hamer can handle that for you.
I was actually thinking about this while I was sitting in a Firestone getting my tire changed in Greenville. We'll get into that another day.
Yeah, man.
And there was this long form commercial for lawyers on TV.
Yeah.
And I was thinking to myself, how cool is it that we have a sponsor who's a lawyer, 2 lawyers.
Mm-hmm.
And we are not over the top. We're not ambulance chasing. They're not doing any of this nonsense. Hey man,
Josh is
here's all of these practical things that you could actually use. And all you got to do is go to wh.lawyer. But I'm sitting here watching this infomercial and there's the former guy from TBD does the infomercial with the guy.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sitting here watching it and I'm going, this cost a lot of money. And I still couldn't figure out what he was trying to get to.
Was he standing on top of a semi-truck?
No,
because I've seen
those on the, remember I got the speeding ticket. Speaking of our adventures, in Giliodom. But I'm just like, how cool is it that we have
basic
Joe Hamer, Josh Whitaker,
keep it
no
simple,
frills, but it's just
simple.
like, hey man, you need us? Call us. You need us? Check us out, wh.lawyer.
All right, now my notes say, let's get to the Carolina Panthers. And yes, all of our conversations about the Carolina Panthers this year brought to you by Graffiti in downtown Cary. Amazing bourbon specials. It is Tuesday. It's break even night, so head on out. And I don't.
Thank you for reminding me it's Tuesday. I don't have the clock in the studio.
I know you have.
Might need to put the clock right above the 5 stars. But okay, it's Tuesday.
Okay, that's fine. I can also put it right there too.
But I can't see it. You need to see I'm the one who needs to know what day of the week it is, sir.
I'll
not you.
Do you still have the clock?
Yeah, it's in my dining room.
All right, well, let's get it in here.
So but I do have a sticker on there that says garbage day. So I don't know if I could. I need that too. Maybe I'll get another one.
You just need to find another clock. That's what it is. Anyway, it's break even night. It's break even night at Graffiti. So it's their bottle of bourbon at cost, and you get that per ounce.
Speaking of great ideas,
it's a fantastic idea. And on Sundays, they got all the football games and great bourbon specials. We're talking Eagle Rare, we're talking Buffalo Trace, Angels Envy, you name it. They've got it, and it's a fun time over at Graffiti. It's straight up not a fun time in Charlotte these days with the Carolina Panthers and what's going on with their 0-3 start. Frank Reich met with the media yesterday, and he was asked a question about Bryce Young being on the sideline and if there was anything he could take from just watching the game from that perspective. Here's Frank's response.
I haven't had a long I did have a short conversation with him, after the game, but not that kind of a conversation. It was just just checking with him and encouraging him, to see how it goes this week. But I really felt like Bryce was dialed. Whatever was set up for Bryce to gain out of this week, I know he gained every ounce of what he could gain by watching Andy, by watching our offense, by watching our team. He was dialed in to kind of learn from that whole process.
All right, so that's Frank Reich. That was then followed up with, all right, well, what's the plan? Like, is he going to practice on Wednesday? Is he going to be available in week 4? Don't
know yet. We'll see how tomorrow goes, and then Wednesday, give you an update then. But, I know he's done everything possible to try to put himself in position too.
Now, look,
if you're the Panthers, you just sit him the next 3 weeks, get the open date, and then you play him against Stroud to shut people up.
Yes.
Like me.
Yes.
I think that's the plan.
That's where we're at right now with the Carolina Panthers.
Just like, hey, man, I want to get you ramped up and ready to go. Maybe Corbett comes back by that time. Do we have a chance at Corbett? Austin Corbett coming back?
It's entirely
right, because that was a 4-game pup.
Yeah, it was he was on that injured reserve list kind of coming out of camp. That's the optimistic view. Totally get that.
Is that a bad plan?
I don't think it's a bad plan. It should be the plan, and good coaching sees what you might have had a plan going into the year.
Right.
And the plan going into the year was that Bryce Young starter week 1.
Take the good with the bad.
And we're going to just roll with it. And he's going to get up to speed. He's going to take the game experience.
Take them all, and there you have.
But there's enough evidence now, based on the current state of the team itself, like what the on-the-field product, a bad offensive line, skill position players that are having a hard time separating and helping create offense, a running game that has ultimately been non-existent so far this season. And a lot of injuries mounting up, although you can look across the league and there's injuries everywhere. Somewhere Lamar Jackson's going, hi, do we want to talk about injuries? Not himself, but just the Ravens constantly find themselves.
I have carried the dead body of the Ravens for the last 4 years.
How much longer do you want me to do this, right? And Seattle, the team that just beat the Carolina Panthers, also was going through a whole list of injuries that they had to overcome, especially on the defensive side.
What a bizarro universe that Seattle's in, by the way.
I know.
Hey, we don't need Russ. We're going to go get Geno Smith.
And
we still have this,
we're going to have just
we
fine.
still have Pete Carroll smacking his gum on the sideline.
That dude doesn't age, by the way.
And they're winning.
So now that you have this information, you're in a very delicate spot when it comes to Bryce Young and his development. And I'm going to reiterate this from yesterday because I know a lot of our Spotify listeners didn't catch it because Spotify was having a quote unquote ingestion delay.
I saw that. Yeah, there's like Tums and stuff for that.
That's what I thought. Take some Pepto, Spotify. Come on now.
What are those purple pills that I take?
That's Nexium. I am of the mind that it's more important to develop Bryce Young to be the franchise quarterback you gave up a ton to get than to try to scrap together some
for this year.
For this year.
Yeah.
Then to scrap together some, we're going to try to still make the playoffs. You're not in a win now mode. You have to admit that you are rebuilding. You might have talked differently this offseason, but based on what we know now and based on what we've seen and based on what we know the Panthers need, let's not try to act as though Frank Reich's history with the Colts, where he started 1-5, finished 10-6, and won a playoff game, is somehow the path for the Carolina Panthers. No. The other reason why I think they should just go ahead.
Andy Dalton wasn't bad either.
But I mean, Andy Dalton was Andy Dalton. Okay. He wasn't spectacular, but I do find
saying on the scale of shitty quarterbacks we've seen fill in and play for the Panthers, like Andy Dalton is way closer to Derek Anderson than anything else that we've seen.
Andy Dalton at this point in his career is what you and I grew up with watching NFL football.
Yes.
Steve DeBerg. Here's a veteran who I know I can put him in and trust, which gets to the key word. It's pretty clear the Carolina Panthers do not trust Bryce Young to run this offense right now.
Well, I don't know if it's trust him or they don't want to damage him.
Here's Frank Reich yesterday. He was asked, I think it was Joe Person from The Athletic. He asked about, first 2 weeks of the season, you guys weren't really doing all that much. And yet you put Andy Dalton out there and suddenly you're taking a few more deep
around
shots.
The yard.
What's going on here? And listen to Frank Reich, and this is why I say they don't trust Bryce Young.
No, I wouldn't say that was the case. I probably called a few more, because I probably called a few more, and there were one or two things that Andy specifically asked for, which I wouldn't go into. I don't want to go into detail on, but there were a couple things that he specifically asked for, and then the one that we hit. The one that we hit the DJ for the touchdown, that was, obviously great execution by the offense, but also a good job by Thomas and Parks, Frazier, and the whole offensive staff. That was a play design that we saw something in the way they played their coverage that we thought we could expose something. And if we got in and there was a certain situation, a certain time and place that we wanted to get it done, and it came up exactly how we wanted it to. And so that was a real credit to Thomas and Parks and the guys. Those were good things that we can build on.
So that's Frank Reich during yesterday's press availability. And I wanted to go back to that key part. He's like, there are some things that Andy wanted us to do. And those are some plays that I called and whatnot. Okay, well, where was this with Bryce Young? I get the preseason. I get that you want to ease him in. You don't want to show too much. Fine, whatever. We can do the yakety coach speak stuff. But when it's time to win football games and you're trying to get out there and do the thing, why would you hold back unless you don't trust Bryce Young to be able to handle the guy who's you drafted this guy because of the processing ability. And now what you're saying is,
you drafted him, you had an idea for him. Now the question is, what is the best way to develop him?
And that's where we are now.
Yeah.
Which gets to your point. Probably worth sitting him, because that's the other thing too. We talked about NC State and messaging yesterday. The messaging for the Carolina Panthers has been atrocious throughout. They gassed everybody in the offseason, all right, trying to set expectations.
But that's not bad.
Not a bad thing. But now you have to be upfront and honest about what's going on. And the ankle injury, I'm still at a loss as to when it happened. All right. Yes, I'm going in the conspiracy mode. I am still at a loss as to when it happened. Very odd that he wasn't in some sort of boot or whatever it was. He looked fine to me. I get that. Perception of what you see on television could be different about what's going on here. But I found it odd throughout this entire process that Bryce Young wasn't being reported like, they're testing it out. He's giving it a go. It's going to be a game time decision. It was just, no, straight up 1 to 2 weeks. I think, back to what is better for the development of Bryce Young, to just say, look, and this gets back to the messaging. If you and I can have an open conversation about how the Miami Dolphins handled Tua Tagovailoa to get to this point, if you and I can have an honest conversation about a future Hall of Famer in Patrick Mahomes,
I was going to say, Mahomes is the one you look at and go, what did they do with him? And I get it. Not everyone's that skilled. I get it.
Gets to
but he watched.
So here gets to my big question. What do you think Frank Reich wants to do versus what do you think David Tepper wants?
I think their plan was to use the number 1 overall pick on a franchise quarterback, let him learn on the job, and that you evaluated the right guy based on his intelligence, based on what you figured his skill set was. And I think the reality now they're looking at is, okay, now what do we do that's best for him in this investment? Because again, I'll repeat the same things I said about NC State that I'll say about the Panthers. I appreciate what they tried to do this offseason.
Mm-hmm.
I appreciate all of the moves they made in theory. In practice now, the question is, how do you make it work? And I think that's the biggest challenge facing them right now is the two biggest people who could help Bryce Young right now are Christian McCaffrey and DJ Moore.
Yeah, well,
those are the two biggest people, and maybe Austin
they
Corbett.
needed, but the issue is that they needed to trade DJ Moore to get Bryce Young.
Correct.
That is the conundrum.
Correct.
Which again gets back to my central question. What do you think Frank Reich actually wants to do? Given the choice, do you think Frank Reich would rather start Andy Dalton the next couple of weeks?
Yeah, I think so.
If Bryce Young is healthy, do you think he'd still rather start Andy Dalton?
Yeah, and I think part of this is the first two losses that they lost to division teams. Like if you take the schedule and flip it around, Chuck Amato, if you give up the 400 yards in the first half instead of the second half, nobody's talking about all the yards we give up in the second half.
Yeah.
If you lose to Atlanta, your division foes later, it gives you the sense that we could still win those games, win the division, and take care of our business. But by losing those games off the jump, I think it now put them in a situation to reevaluate and say, okay, we're not going to, this is a marathon. This is not a sprint. And what is best for this investment? And I don't, if they would actually come out and say that,
the football people,
without neutering Bryce Young, by the way,
there, you have to handle that as well. Totally get that part. I think the football people get this, but I don't think David Tepper gets this. Again, I'm in pure speculation mode right now, but I can kind of go with what we've seen out of David Tepper since he's owned the Carolina Panthers.
Sure.
He would rather have the shiny object. He'd rather try to have butts in seats. He'd rather have the quick fix. And when he doesn't get what he wants, as with developments in Rock Hill and whatnot, he's ready to bail on these types of things. So he doesn't have the patience for that kind of stuff. And I bet you behind the scenes, there is a push and pull from what the owner wants and what football people want. And I think football people would have an honest assessment of where Bryce Young is now and look at other instances and say, look, if he is the guy, there's nothing wrong with having him develop.
Here's what's best. Here's what's best for him.
That's the most important part right now.
Maybe watching and learning while our offensive line is a fire drill right now.
I think that's a really simple conversation to have. Thanks to Homefield for sponsoring Ovias and Giglio. Check them out online at homefieldapparel.com. Use that promo code OG23 to get 15% off your order. It's almost shorts and hoodie season. If it's not there,
we're there.
I know it is for my kids because that's just how they roll to school all the time. And I got incredibly comfortable hoodies. So go check them out. Homefieldapparel.com. OG23 is that promo code to get 15% off your order. Download the app too because they got a lot of great stuff. It goes beyond just the apparel. They also have some really interesting history of college football and college athletics that Ryan Nanny writes about, and you'll have a lot of fun. They got a good community with their app as well. Also, big thanks to Hometown Realty. Check them out at myhtr.com. Again, that's myhtr.com. Buy, sell. We like things dead simple. Giglio needs a clock that tells him what day of the week it is. He needs a website to say, are you buying a house or are you selling a house?
And it has a mortgage calculator.
See?
What?
Makes it super simple for you, right?
This is what the pros do. They help you. So go to myhtr.com. Barry Woodard and his crew. 6 locations, more than 250 agents. You think you get that big by accident without knowing what you're doing, without knowing the real estate market? Go check them out. It's myhtr.com.
So you have a home. What's your insurance situation? See, we're a one-stop shop here at Ovies and Giglio. You contact Matt Davis, insuregarner.com, theoginsurance.com, or you can call him directly at 919-779-8277. Matt Davis, I'm a State Farm guy. Been a State Farm guy for 2 decades.
Yeah.
We've already had some listeners reach out and say, hey, look. Troy's big one.
Man, I need to send Troy a shirt. So hit us up, Troy. Hit me up again, man.
Yeah, just shoot us an email, and we'll make sure that we get, I think I have one yellow Positive Vibes Only shirt left.
We need to reload. Medium, we need to reload on those for the golf tournament.
What, those?
Yeah, I like those.
The yellow ones?
Mm-hmm.
You're like the one person who's
obsessed. It's our brand, man.
Yeah, but on a t-shirt.
Yeah.
Yellow is a tough color to pull off, man.
I like it.
Okay.
Looks good.
I might be like the one person who looks okay in yellow because I have the complexion.
Good.
I have the complexion
the OG insurance.
My juices flow all the time.
All the time. The OG
in a yellow shirt.
.com.
Okay, just making sure.
I think my juices flow all the time.
Joe's very excited that we got that on the soundboard. Joining us on the Heister Automotive Group hotline, Andrew Carter, News and Observer. Let's just get right to it, Andrew. Does Duke have the best college football program in the state?
Yeah, I think by the definition that I laid out last year that caused a lot of interest and conversation, I think you would have to say that, because Duke is getting it done with a lot of kids who are not necessarily highly recruited.
Yeah.
This isn't a program historically that's had a very high ceiling. Let's be honest.
Mm-hmm.
And so, when I wrote what I wrote last year about App State, the whole argument was about which program in the state comes closest to maximizing its potential.
Sure.
Is the thing. And so when you look at that now, certainly you have to say that, Duke is doing that. 4-0, they beat Clemson. I think they're 17th, top 20.
Mm-hmm.
And I looked it up. This is the first game at Wallace Wade coming up here against Notre Dame between top 20 teams since 1960. November of 1960, when Duke hosted Navy.
All right.
And I went into the NNO archives and just, I'm sort of a history nerd. And I'm curious about this stuff. And, I was wondering what was in the NNO, in November 5th, 1960. And there are stories about JFK campaigning, all kinds of interesting political happenings there in the early 60s. And
Taylor Swift football explainers.
Yes. Yeah. But it's been a long time. And getting back to the question, I think you do have to make that case. I mean, the job that Mike Elko has done, it's just been phenomenal. And you almost feel bad for his fellow coaches in the coaching fraternity, because now it's going to be like, well, look at what Mike Elko did at Duke in less than 2 years.
I'm glad you brought that up. And that's actually where I was going to, there's a splintered conversation here. Yes. There's a consistency of when Duke and Wake Forest are successful, it turns all the eyes over to NC State and North Carolina. Like, y'all, if they can get to a championship game, well, what's stopping you from doing? You have every access, money in the world to do these types of things, fan base, etc. But the key part here is sustainability at these programs. We've seen this before. And I'm not saying this was going to happen with Mike Elko. What I'm saying is how difficult it is to sustain it at places like Wake Forest and at Duke, because you can go, not that I dabble in history like you do, but I've been doing this long enough to remember Jim Grobe at Wake Forest making life miserable for those people at Duke, saying, well, wait a minute. If they can do it at Wake, why can't we? And of course, you saw the buildup that, and Grobe fell off, right? And then here comes David Cutcliffe. All right, they're running hot. They put some investment in, and then we saw it just kind of atrophy at the end. And then Dave Clawson comes to Wake Forest. Hey, cool. They're running hot. Now they got a little bit of a transition time with Mitch Griffith and trying to see where that offense goes, a little evolution there. They're beating themselves, really. And Mike Elko, a former assistant, has elevated Duke to where they are right now in quickly 2 years. But the sustainability for this stuff at these schools is really difficult, man.
It is. And that's the key point of it. I will say, I think that any school can build something if you have the resources, if you have the right coaching staff in place, if these guys stick around. I mean, I think the challenge for a place like Duke is, can they keep Elko? Mm-hmm. And you mentioned Wake, and Wake is a little bit down this particular year after the departure of Sam Hartman. We might have expected this, a little bit of a transition, some growing pains. But overall, I think that program's on solid footing. I think Wake, last offseason was the only Power 5. I could get this wrong, but I'm going to throw it out there anyway because this is the internet.
It's just a podcast. Don't worry.
But I'm pretty sure this is correct. That Wake was the only member of a Power 5 conference not to lose a transfer out. Well, Hartman, but undergrad, a guy, younger than that. They didn't have hardly any of those guys, if any. And so they've built a culture in which kids want to be a part of it and want to stay and build something. And Clawson's recruited kids that are content to wait their turn, which is rare. So I think you can do it. I mean, I think the formula has been laid out at different places. We're not talking necessarily become like a top 10 national championship contending type program, but I do think that the blueprint is there for Duke to be successful in football. I think they can be a top 20-ish team. And, if things go right, they could have a chance occasionally, like it seems like they do this year. And I think it underscores something I wrote a couple of weeks ago, in that, there's this perception, and I think this really hurts the ACC nationally, this whole basketball school thing. Oh, the ACC is full of a bunch of schools that don't care about football. It's Carolina, it's Duke, it's, the Tobacco Road Mafia. They don't care about, the big bad sport of football.
Mm-hmm.
These schools have all invested. I'm pretty sure within the past decade, they've all built indoor practice facilities. Wake has spent like an ungodly sum of money on buildings. They just opened up a nice new locker room building this year. Duke's facilities are really nice, like outside of Wallace Wade, and they've done some work to Wallace Wade.
Yeah.
We all remember when that track was around it.
Mm-hmm.
But the press box is nice. They've made some upgrades in the stadium.
The press box used to be an extension of the hospital.
Yeah, we all remember what NC State used to look like at Carter Finley with the hill and, all that stuff. And those facilities are nice. Carolina is in the, they have stuff in the works of upgrading the Keenan Football Center and doing different things there. So schools are spending money. Like, the resources are there. Is it comparable to like the resources at Florida or LSU or Georgia? Maybe not. But none of these schools are struggling in the ACC. And I think if you get lucky with a coach like Duke has with Elko, you can build something if those guys stick around. And that's the big question in my mind with Duke is like, can they keep this guy? Does he want to be there? Wake has been fortunate that Clawson wants to be there.
Mm-hmm.
Does Elko want to be at Duke beyond this year?
It's got to be the right job at this point.
Yeah.
You know what's wild to think about? I think if you ask 100 football coaches, right, who knows more about X and O football than David Cutcliffe?
Sure.
Out of those 100, how many like 95 of them are like, yeah, he's in the top 3 of X and O coaches, right?
Mm-hmm.
So what Mike Elko has done is he's come in to a situation where a guy who's a super X and O coach had good players, but couldn't scheme them up. That's wild to think about. He either didn't motivate him or he didn't scheme him up, or maybe even both.
It's both.
But maybe even both.
Mm-hmm.
So now you have a guy who comes in, makes a great hire in Kevin Johns. I don't know how many times I got to say it. You have to have the right guy calling your plays.
Mm-hmm.
Have to. So he does that. But this isn't like Deion's portal magic. This isn't Florida State going to spend money on Keon Coleman and Johnny Wilson. This is a guy who came into a situation where they had some good players. He's literally coached them up. So I don't understand why he would. We like Mike Elko. He's from New Jersey. He is Luke's contemporary at Penn.
That's right.
If he were to ask me, what should I do? Which he's not going to do, obviously. I would say to him, Steve Spurrier would say the same thing to him because this is what Steve Spurrier did. He would say, go take another job. Because you can't stay at Duke like Cutcliffe did and get another job.
No, you can't do that.
Right? And I'm sure he's screaming right now, well, I could have gotten the Tennessee job. Yeah, but Dave Dorn could have gotten the Tennessee job too. Okay? So anybody could have got, like any ship in the storm could have gotten the Tennessee job. So it's not really saying a lot right now. Okay? So I would look at that and go, is this sustainable? And I think absolutely the answer is no. And this can get us into a conversation about NC State. Like what is actually realistic for our schools on an annual basis? Like, because State fans are mad that I keep pointing out, like, this is a down year for State.
Mm-hmm.
It is,
but if they go 6-6 in a down year, that's unbelievable to me. Particularly when you look at what was Elfed's down year at Carolina, 2-10.
2-10, 3-9,
right?
whatever they were. Yeah.
And Cutcliffe, who I'm sitting here telling you is this unbelievable X&O coach. What was he? What was he? 1-17 in his last 18 ACC games, or something like that.
The bottom fell out with that.
So, what do we think of as a realistic? In my opinion, realistic means when you have the thing going right, you just take advantage of it.
Yeah.
And I think that's what Duke's trying to do. I honestly, low key this year too.
The problem with State,
I think that's what Carolina's trying to do this year too.
The problem with State, as both of you know, is that when they've had those opportunities, they've missed. You noticed of the three, one is not like the other. Duke took advantage of it, got to a championship game. Hell, they might get to the championship game again this year. Carolina, for all the faults that we've given Carolina over the last couple of years, guess what Mac Brown managed to do? Get to an ACC championship game. State hasn't even. State. It's not even about. Win, I'm not. It's getting there. It's getting there. All right. They never won a division.
I think Duke maximized in 13. I don't think you can argue that Carolina maximized last year because of the way that the season finished. Georgia Tech's a bad football team.
I got you.
They had
no reason
at home to Georgia Tech last year.
You can still hang your hat on.
That state team that they lost to last year was a carcass of what it was supposed to be. They shouldn't have lost that football game.
You can still hang your hat on the fact that you won a division. When you've never done it, when you've had those opportunities in good teams. I mean, right now, what Dave Dorn ultimately has that he can hang his hat on, to your point about the bottom hasn't dropped out since they started his first year.
Well,
right?
19.
Oh, 19. But that was an injury-riddled year. But regardless of how you feel about NC State's up and down, you know what they consistently do? They get to bowl games and they beat Carolina.
That's what, and that's what people care about, I think, among that fan base.
So is that a realistic expectation?
Make bowl games.
Well, I think for state,
I think so. Yeah,
we've seen it for state. It's that. I think it's 8 wins, maybe 9 occasionally, and if you beat UNC, people are happy. I think what Doran has done there, you can argue that Doran maybe is, he's up there with Dick Sheridan. I think at this point, maybe a hair below.
The old timers just chuck their laptops.
Well, I mean, he's certainly the best coach they've had.
Their gateway computers.
He's certainly the best coach they've had since Dick Sheridan.
Okay.
In terms of consistency, in terms of beating the team that they care about beating.
Yeah.
At NC State.
Yeah, that makes sense. All right, one more thing before we get out of here. I am just now seeing that the NCAA, in a handful of situations, has granted waivers to double transfers. This is very strange to me. So the most recent one, I think they did it in basketball like last week or 2 weeks ago. But overnight, I see this story in the Star Tribune. NCAA approves Gophers defensive back Craig McDonald's transfer waiver. Oh, that's interesting. So apparently, I'm not going to act like I know anything about this guy's story. All right. I think that's true of about 99% of fans who see these types of things. But Andrew, I'm going to need you to help me out here.
Shorthand, though, he transferred twice and got a waiver.
He spent 2020 and 21 at Iowa State before transferring to Auburn in 22. He played at both schools. Literally played at both schools.
Has not graduated.
He's got, I think, according to the Star Tribune, he's got 3 years of eligibility left, and he transferred to Minnesota in May. All right. In May. And he just got an immediate waiver to join the football program. So what? Am I missing something?
I don't think so. And that's the stuff that causes a lot of confusion. It's the stuff that people don't understand about this process.
Yeah.
One of the issues with this whole thing with Tez Walker is like it all just seems very arbitrary when you compare his case to the cases of certain other kids. Why are waivers granted here when they're not in Walker's case? Mm-hmm. And Walker, again, only played at one school.
Right.
Which is the thing. And it's interesting to me that, during COVID, I think that, one of the good things that the NCAA has ever done is actually grant kids an extra year for that year that was taken away because of COVID.
Yeah.
But now they're saying, that year didn't count in terms of eligibility, basically, when you allowed everyone to have an extra year. And now in Tez's case, they're saying, oh, it counts because you were at the school. The season was canceled, but you were at the school, and that's going to count against your case when it comes to this waiver situation.
I would actually argue the NCAA screwed up with the eligibility.
You can make that argument too. I think their heart was in the right place.
Yeah, but they should have given the seniors who were basically couldn't play baseball or college basketball that year when their chance to win an NCAA championship was taken away from them. That group alone should have been given an extra year.
Limited to spring.
But that group should have been given it. And that group was not. Like the CJ Bryces of the world, like the seniors on that NC State basketball team or any of that class. Like that was the group that deserved to have another year. Those baseball athletes, they deserved another year.
Yeah.
By giving everybody a year, by giving everybody a free clock, you've screwed up everything that you've done now. you know, like, and it's compounded, like the old man yelling at clouds, their issues with the portal is, well, Sam Hartman and Jack Plummer and all these other 6th-year quarterbacks that we see in the ACC, Brennan Armstrong. You're like, what are these guys still doing in college football? Well, the NCAA created this by giving everybody that year. When in fact, they should have just given a very specific set of players in sports an extra year.
That's created a ripple effect.
Yeah, that they never anticipate.
But now flash forward to this situation with this kid who got the waiver and Tez. I mean, I don't understand that.
I don't get it. But you know what, though? That is consistent with the NCAA. They make these decisions in weird, arbitrary ways, and then it leads to speculation of, were they just trying to stick it to UNC? I don't know. I mean, from the Star Tribune.
It's not even the NCAA though. It's the Georgia president
from the Star Tribune.
Who's the other person?
I thought this was an interesting
Kent State.
I thought this was an interesting little blurb. As the process played out, Gophers coach PJ Fleck did not comment on the NCAA's procedures. That's in contrast to the situation at North Carolina, where the NCAA denied Tez Walker's waiver. That prompted Tar Heels head coach Mac Brown to say it's clear that the NCAA is about process and couldn't care less about the young people.
Well, how many hearings did this kid have?
That's, again, I don't know.
Because Tez had like 8.
8. Right. It was like 8 years.
So clearly Mac had reached his limit.
Yep.
I wonder what people handled that case as well. This is where the NCAA's failures come into play.
Consistency in who's covering these things?
No, the NCAA doesn't exist.
Oh, well.
Okay. You're talking about the Georgia president, and I'm sorry, it's another person from a MAC school. I can't remember who the person is specifically.
Whatever.
But we saw this during Carolina's other issues. It was like, like the former was Sankey, right? And there was a couple other people who were
Sankey was the chair of the committee on infractions.
Yeah. So like you have but he handled that case, but they didn't handle like the NC State case a year later. So you have all these different people interpreting the same NCAA rules differently instead of just creating out of all of the money that they collect, just create an arm that handles if you want to be in the enforcement business, be in the effing enforcement business. If you don't want to be in it and you just want to put on a really good tournament, then just do that. Like none of this makes any sense. And I don't care where you went to school or where you graduated from. Like what they're doing to Tez Walker at this point now is not right.
I agree. No, I totally agree with you on that. And the schools have to ultimately decide what they want to, because again,
the schools. There you go.
Schools.
Now you're decided. Now you got it right.
Meanwhile, Andrew's just sipping tea. Andrew Carter.
It is tea.
News and Observer. All right, man. We appreciate it. Are you going to game? Are you going to game day?
Not game day. I think I'll be in Wolfpack land on Friday night. So maybe I'll see you guys there.
Interesting game on Friday night against
It's
Louisville.
big.
All right, man. We'll talk to you later.
Thanks for having me.
Big thanks to Butcher's Market for sponsoring Ovia's and Giglio. Butcher's Market, I'm actually going to be cooking up the ancho chili lime chicken today. That's going to be the secret ancient old Ovia's family recipe for taco.
I've not had that one yet.
Yeah, it's an ancho chili lime. Sometimes they have it in thighs. I think this was in breast form. You know I'm a thigh man. But they had it. They had the chicken breasts. So I went with that this week. So I'm going to cook those bad boys up this evening as I get ready for another episode of Ahsoka on Disney Plus. But yeah, go to Butcher's Market. They got all your tailgating needs. They got your outdoor grilling needs. And they have recipes. They have marinades that you can just dupe your friends saying, oh, no, I've had this in the bag for a long time. Marinating it for 3 days at the Butcher's Market. But that, they don't need to know that.
Hit all the spots.
They don't need to know that. And big thanks to Mosquito Authority and Pest Authority for sponsoring Ovia's and Giglio. You might be grilling outside. You don't want mosquitoes bothering you right now. I get that it's fall time, but mosquitoes can still be active given that it's North Carolina and it tends to be warm still this time of the year. Mosquito Authority can help take care of that, and they can take care of the critters inside the house. If you don't have cats like me that are taking care of some crickets, they're on a cricket binge right now.
Got to be careful.
I agree.
You got to watch your karma.
I'm with you on that.
Our guy, Hayes Lancaster, the OG though. Go check out bugsbite.com. See all the different offers that they have. They don't believe in contracts. They don't need to. That's how good their service is. They know that you'll come back and support them. So go check them out. It's bugsbite.com.
We're moving on.
So some other college football notes to get to. And again, big thanks to Andrew Carter for hanging out with us. But some other college football notes to get to. We mentioned the Louisville game. It's coming up Friday night.
Yeah.
And people complaining about Friday night games and how it relates to high school and everything else. But I present to you two instances where other coaches at other schools complain about time of day that they have to play.
Okay.
Right. So Kentucky, shout out to Devin Leary. Kentucky is going to be playing a noon game, and head coach Mark Stoops was asked about having to play at noon against Florida, how that's going to affect the crowd at Kentucky from being a factor on Saturday. And I really appreciated Mark Stoops' response.
I have great confidence in the people of Kentucky that can get up very early and pound some beers. Why would you disrespect this great state and the great people of it?
He's right.
That's really good.
Why would you disrespect that? Why would you do that?
That's really good.
So I appreciate that from Mark Stoops. Meanwhile, you got Marcus Freeman. They're going to be playing Louisville. They just announced some new game times, and it turns out that they're going to be playing Louisville at night. Marcus Freeman, this was from Louisville Updates. Marcus Freeman was asked about a night game, and Freeman's response was quite comical.
4 consecutive night games now. Does that at all help? Yeah.
Louisville's a night game?
Yeah. Okay. All right.
So what am I missing here? What's wrong with playing at night? I don't get it. Do you want to play at noon? Is noon
He
too
was
early?
disappointed.
Yeah, he was disappointed. He was like, really? Another one? And his head looks down. He's like, okay. What am I missing?
As Luke Takak likes to point out to me, the Midwest, they enjoy, like Big Ten country in particular, they like a noon or 1 o'clock game on Saturday. Like it's a ritual. Remember, the Big Ten in October actually has a rule about playing games at night. So like there's a thing there in the Midwest, and he's an Ohio State guy. Mm-hmm. I mean, I know he's Notre Dame's coach right now, but he is an Ohio State guy, I'm pretty sure. So that's a thing. But playing at night, I love those night games. It's interesting. This Friday night game, we got to get Steve Logan on now.
Oh, geez.
Because remember, this is basically what got him fired at ECU.
Because he complained about it, right?
This is basically what got him fired at ECU.
I can tell you, we can
dispute all of these years, because his whole thing was he was trying to tell the state about recruiting, like, hey, I have no control over what TV tells us to do. We are at the mercy of TV was his thing was. And at the time, this was 30 years ago now. Mm-hmm. He was trying to say, like, we have no control over what TV tells us to do. And of course, I think Mac in the background was tweaking, of course, the NCHSAA by saying, hey man, look at this guy. He's scheduling games on a Friday when you should be respecting the sanctity of high school football in the state of North Carolina.
It was absolutely used as recruiting. Yes.
Yeah. So the ACC made this move because remember, the NFL took over Thursday. Mm-hmm. So now you don't see Thursday night games anymore because the ACC was like, well, shit, we can't play on Thursday because the NFL's got it.
It's also
so we're going to play on Friday. But keep in mind now, State and Carolina had been reluctant to host Friday night games. This is the first time State will host a Friday night game. And they've been playing them. Wake Forest was kind of the guinea pig in this state. Duke was a little bit of a guinea pig in this state.
Because they're the private schools.
But this is the first time State will host a Friday. They've resisted all of this all along.
I've always found that argument to be silly, especially as we've gotten to technology where you can keep up with both things at once. Okay.
That's fair. But I think for those schools though, like Friday night, this is a huge game for State.
And I can already tell you what Steve Logan would say, because I've had those conversations multiple times and I'm pretty sure Steve Logan doesn't want to talk about it anymore. So,
that's fine.
I mean, I can reach out to him.
Just saying, if anybody would like to tell, I told y'all.
I've been saying this. I mean, I can hear Steve.
No,
in my head.
The problem for State on Friday is you have a huge game.
Yeah.
And you can't bring any recruits to it because they're actually playing.
I know.
That's the problem.
I understand. Yeah, because there's a huge Enloe Broughton game that's taking place on Friday.
It's a lot going on.
Homecoming, which by the way,
OG homecoming, isn't it?
More details tomorrow, but we're going to be doing the show from Enloe on Thursday live. I'm very excited about this.
It's OG homecoming.
It really is. Big thanks to Wings Over Raleigh, Wings Over Chapel Hill, Wings Over Greenville. Hey, you want to watch the State game on Friday night? You want to tailgate? Head on over to Wings Over. They're going to be open up 4:00. Get over there, get your wings, and then head over to your tailgate and then enjoy the game. Or you're going to be home gating. Again, just pick up some wings, head on back. And of course, Wings Over Chapel Hill, Wings Over Greenville. Hot lemon pepper is my move. Just saying, hot lemon pepper is absolutely the move for me. One other thing to get to in our little college football here.
Wait, why don't I get my vote?
What's your vote again?
Sweet chili.
Oh yeah, you are all about the sweet chili.
Are you kidding?
I know you are.
Ryan's crew, man. The Greenville location.
Mhm.
Now I have to go to the Chapel Hill one.
Okay.
Because it's the only one I haven't been to.
Get hit up, touch them all.
Yeah.
Touch them all.
For real.
I'm down with it. I'm down with it. We have our Bizdelic of the week. We didn't do one yesterday.
No, we did.
But we did do
We
one
called our
yesterday.
shot.
We did, and it actually happened on Dabo's radio show. Chapel Fowler's listening to Dabo's Clemson coaches show, and he says that Clemson football, quote, literally 3 plays away from being a top 5 team in the country, but that's not reality. The program is built on adversity.
Told us that you take away those runs, and we outscored them by 19. So,
is that a full Bizdelic?
Yes. What are those 3 plays? Clearly, the scoop and score. That game doesn't go that way without the scoop and score against Florida State. Then there must be 2 in the Duke game that he's lamenting.
Yeah,
probably the Riley Leonard, magic trick.
Also, missed field goals.
Well, forget the missed field goals. I mean,
just saying. I mean, missed field goals count in those situations.
I am genuinely curious now what he thinks would be the 3 plays.
We have to follow
feels
up
like
with
there's
him on that.
Feels like there's more than 3. The Duke game felt a little bit more than 3.
Maybe.
move on.
Joining us on the Heister Automotive Group hotline, he is Steve Wiseman. He covers Duke. He also is an AP voter. Let's actually start with the AP.
Sure.
Georgia's still your number 1.
Yes, they are.
What'd you do with Florida State? Because they dropped in the AP top 25.
They dropped 1 spot in my thing because I had to credit Ohio State.
Why?
For what they did.
Why? That was on Marcus Freeman.
They won a top 10. They went into somebody's.
Because Marcus Freeman decided, I got 10 guys. I can't take a penalty. Yes, you can take a penalty.
Also with Florida State. Okay. Basically, somebody had to drop because Ohio State. I needed to rise there because they beat Notre Dame. Okay. All right. So now, Florida State didn't play well at BC. We know why. We talked about that.
Mm-hmm.
Now, they won at Clemson in overtime. Clemson's unranked. Okay. Now let's go back to one thing. Let's do alternate universe thing here. Okay.
We just talked about this about Dabo, where hey man, they're just 3 or 5 plays away from being a top 5 team.
Sure.
Well, no, I think this gets to
if ifs and buts were candy and nuts,
I think this gets back to how do you vote, right?
Yeah.
Like, and there's no right answer. There's no wrong answer here, in my opinion. Sure. Like, if you're sitting here telling me you think Georgia's the best team in the country, it's not based on who they've beaten, right?
Right.
Okay.
Right.
So that's fine. But then it is slightly confusing to reward Ohio State for beating Notre Dame and not reward Florida State for beating LSU, who is very good.
I did. Well, they have
and
been
Clemson. I mean, those are two wins better than anybody else has.
One for sure. Yeah, Clemson. Again.
Yeah, and you saw Clemson in person.
I did.
So I mean,
that's why
you have your own opinion.
The alternate universe thing here.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. If Clemson had beaten Duke and Florida State they beat LSU and then they went at Clemson.
Yeah.
They're like number 1 probably, right? Okay. I mean, I would probably push them past Georgia. So that's the thought process there. We
talked about this a little bit with Andrew too. As far as Duke is concerned, with game day coming here, how much of what we're seeing right now with Mike Elko in year 2 is left over from David Cutcliffe? I mean, these are
a lot of his players.
Yeah. And we saw, what was the stat?
It just blows my mind.
Like, was it 1-17 down the stretch, right?
Yeah. 13 ACC losses in a row.
Okay.
Most of them by like 30 points.
What would you say is the biggest difference from a group that couldn't win to a group that is now hosting game day and is a top 25 team and actually has a legitimate shot at showing up in Charlotte for an ACC championship game?
Right. Number 1 is the conditioning, the shape of the guys. And they invested in that catapult system. We've talked about catapult.
Yeah.
That's a big thing. They went all in on that, and the other staff didn't, for whatever reason, go all in. They used a little bit, but they didn't go all the way in. Part of that's funding. They came in with the new staff.
Sure.
They were able to pay for it. Number 2 is again, I talk about the modernization of the play calling, the fresh ideas that came in with the new staff, as opposed to kind of the stale ideas of the old staff, right? Because some of those guys for the old staff that have gone to other places are seeing now, whoa, this game's a lot different than it was 10 years ago. And, everybody loves cut, right? But I mean, it just kind of got stale. So
it got stale.
That's it. And so they're so prepared on every little step that, and they go in there with confidence now, like UConn.
Yeah.
They just took care of business. They didn't mess around. Like, they don't mess around anymore.
Well, it's interesting you bring up the confidence part of this, and I've seen this.
Hell of a drug.
It's Joe's talked about it. I've seen fans talk about this. and we see it on the pro level too. When you believe and you show your team that I believe that you can handle this, then they're going to feed off of that. And we've seen it with NC State where sometimes, Dave Doran wants to win a particular way. And sometimes maybe there's a psyche to, man, you don't trust us to go out there and do this thing. And it gets tightened up. We talked about it with Bryce Young.
Right.
I don't think they believe Bryce Young can help them win football games right now. All right. And that's going to bleed over into Bryce Young. There's not that issue with Mike Elko. It's pretty wild to watch.
It's such transformation.
It really is.
Isn't it?
And of course, it gets to the big question after this big game day appearance. How much longer is he going to be at Duke?
Well, that's the thing.
It's got to be the right job, right?
Absolutely. And he likes it here. He's he's the academic guy from Penn and all that.
He's not going to be Dave Clawson.
But he's been at higher places than he knows. Like Michigan State's don't have to already because of their situation. They can almost they can double or triple his salary probably, right?
Which is wild.
Yeah,
that is pretty
wild. That's Big Ten money. But
all right, so what? You got your game day fit ready? You going to be in the the Steve?
No, that's not me. That's not me.
You're going to be waving. You're not going to hold up a Washington. You're not going to have the Washington State flag.
News and Observer. I'll do that.
They've gotten super religious lately.
What do you mean?
There's been a lot of zealots in the crowd. I've noticed that each week.
I'll be honest with you. I haven't really watched game day in a long time.
Well,
it'll be on in the background.
I actually went to the one at Clemson last year. It was actually kind of fun.
Okay. Yeah, I might go Saturday.
I think we are going to go. Yeah,
just to kind of get the vibe of what's going on. But
so the zealots will be in good stead in this one because the background's going to be the chapel.
Of course.
Yeah. Well, they were at Notre Dame last week, but it's. I don't know. I'm not trying to.
They're trying to what?
Well, I'm not trying to get into a religious conversation, but it just seems like
they can't control.
People are being paid to go there to bring these signs about
Oh, you mean astroturfing? You mean astroturfing exists with these things? You mean that some of the things that are supposedly viral aren't really viral at all? Like I don't know, bearded guys with banjos and super expensive mics that cost more than our studio. I mean, who's to say? Who is to say, Joe? Who's the guest picker going to be? Do you know?
I don't know for sure.
Okay.
I know that.
Would it be? Would people be mad if it was Coach K?
Yeah.
Because it's basketball.
Yeah.
Because it's basketball.
Sure. This is
a thing.
Football is football. There's pride.
Who would be mad?
There's pride in that. The football program is bringing game day for the first time and all that.
Don't bring the quitter back here. Don't bring the quitter Spurrier back here. Don't do it.
I don't know.
That better not be the answer.
Strahan would be good. His daughter just enrolled at Duke over the summer.
Okay.
And he's already
what if Springsteen showed up?
Or Seinfeld? I'd love Seinfeld.
I got Seinfeld on my list, not to give it away, but
Tim Apple?
Yeah. I don't know. Yeah, maybe him.
Well, he's an Auburn guy.
Yeah.
Let's be real. He's an Auburn guy.
Seinfeld's like his daughter graduated in May,
right,
and his son is now at Duke. So he's a
all double
in.
Duke.
He's all in.
All right.
So
all right. I mean, I have my list. I'm not going to give it away. I'll tell Steve when we're done here. But all right. So, but I'm on the right track here with the Coach K thing because Coach K initially was like, well, that would make the most amount of sense.
It would.
But it's interesting that they're doing it from the quad with the chapel and not where they typically would do a game day where they've had lots of experience because they've done that game day stuff in that concourse in between Cameron Indoor and Wallace Wade.
Right. I'm told now that it's not big enough for the football
for
version
what they
of
want
it.
to do it. Okay.
Yeah.
For the ESPN stage.
They couldn't do it there.
That makes sense. All right, Steve. Appreciate it, man.
Yep.
All right, it's time for the OG mixtape. We have LK in studio today. What up, LK?
Hello.
You have time on your hands.
I do. I'm unemployed.
So, what can
we help you with that?
Can we help? We've been
Sure.
we've been helping advertisers. Can we help get somebody employed?
That would be fantastic.
What are you looking to do?
I'm in project management.
Uh-huh.
I worked for an agency in life sciences for about 5 years. Prior to that, I was a paralegal at the law offices of James Scott Farrell.
You were telling them you mean business.
Was.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So yeah, any type of project management. Y'all need a project manager?
We can't afford one right now.
Oh, okay.
We do need a project manager. It's just right now OG Media LLC can barely pay the O and the G.
Oh, yes. I heard $3,000 or something like that in your bank account.
That's pretty
yesterday.
good. It's a lot.
Yeah, that is good.
For us.
Good for y'all.
Yeah.
I guess, right?
Yeah.
All right. So if you're looking for a project manager, go hire LK.
I'm on LinkedIn.
You're going to have to give your full legal name for that, though.
Oh God. Actually, you
I don't
could
even know
look
your.
up.
I don't even know your real name.
You could look up LK because it's on there.
All right, just look up LK.
Yeah.
Are you ready to play Mixtape?
Oh God, yes.
Now, a little bit of context here. You are what I like to call a P1.
Yes.
And you have messaged me when people get
Mixtape
obvious
incorrect.
ones wrong.
Correct.
All right.
Yes.
So,
including the new version?
No, not the
Okay.
new version.
Okay.
so
Yes.
no pressure
Oh yeah, no
for
pressure.
someone who goes, how did you not get this?
How did you not get this? Yeah, no, I'm friends with Alex, who was on here last week, and yes, agreed. Sitting in the hot seat, as it were.
All right, so here's how it works.
Okay.
We do not have the rights to the music, so we have Stacy over at Graphics House, who made this wonderful OG metal sign that's behind
I
Julia.
love that, by the way.
It's
Yeah.
really
Thank
cool.
you.
It's really cool.
Awesome.
So she's going to read a verse in her wonderful Southern accent.
East
Okay.
Tennessee.
East Tennessee. Okay, because I have a Kinston accent. So
And if you know the song, just tell us the song, and then we'll roll the prize wheel and see where it goes. You ready?
Okay.
I got my eyes on you. You're everything that I see. I want your hot love and emotion endlessly. I can't get over you. You left your mark on me. I want your hot love and emotional endlessly. Because you're a good girl and you know it. You act so different around me. Because you're a good girl and you know it. I know exactly who you could be.
It's Drake. Is it Eyes on You, Drake? No, I don't know the.
You don't know the name of the song?
I don't know the name of the song.
I need an answer.
You want me to start singing?
No.
Okay.
It's fine.
Hold on.
I'm tapping out. Oh, hold on. But it's Drake, right?
I'm coming home.
Yeah.
I'm coming home. Yes.
Just hold on, I'm going home.
See, yeah.
Pressure was
'Cause
on.
you're a
Pressure
good
was
girl
on.
and you know it.
And I don't really listen to Drake.
But that song was pretty.
You act
I know,
so
because there was the
different around
guy
me.
from Modern Family. That was like his shtick. He just kept posting videos like
I
to that
see.
song over and
I
over
see.
again. But
Well, as a consolation prize, we're going to bring back Top 4 at 4.
this is why I'm really
This is ultimately why you're here. When I referenced
I heard you were doing that.
when I referenced LK being a P1, you were very hardcore about Top 4 at 4.
Correct.
And when it went away, you were super upset.
Yes.
So I thought, okay, fine. If you're going to come up here and Duke is going to be hosting game day,
Duke is Duke.
and
Duke is Duke.
I know you're a Duke / NC State fan,
Correct.
that we'd go Top 4 at 4 Duke game day guest picker.
Yes, I love this topic.
All right. LK, you can get us started with number 4.
Okay. So, not my first Duke basketball player crush, but my biggest Duke basketball player crush, Shane Battier.
All right.
Who's your daddy? Nice. Very
Yeah.
nice.
Yes, that would be lovely.
Well, who's your number 4, Joe?
My number 4 in the grand tradition of transfers who leave schools and star elsewhere. I am going Jake Bobo, Duke legend. Jake Bobo, who just scored a touchdown against the Carolina Panthers this week.
My number 4 is Richard Nixon's head from Futurama.
Okay.
Richard Nixon, Duke guy.
He was a Duke alum, yes.
But I want specifically the head in a jar from Futurama.
Okay.
Number 3, okay.
So I've seen what Taylor Swift can do for the NFL.
Oh, yeah.
We need a pop equivalent for the college bracket, and that's Olivia Rodrigo.
Wait.
She's just a pop star
But
that would like.
what's her Duke connection?
There is none. It's just that she's that demographic of college student.
That's a bad idea.
No, your answer there is Ed Sheeran.
Oh,
His
yeah.
wife played field hockey at Duke.
Oh,
Really?
he
I didn't
was
know that.
there.
Yes.
I did not know that.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting.
Who's your number 3, Joe?
My number 3 is Jerry Seinfeld. Like every kid he has apparently goes to Duke or went to
That's
Duke.
And he was there at Coach K's.
And he was there with Adam Silver at Coach K's
Yeah.
Well,
farewell.
Speaking of Cameron Indoor, well, Rob Lowe would show up and he would just wear like an ACC hat.
Yes.
That's what he would do. My number 3 is Tyler Hansborough. I mean, he does own some real estate
Hansborough Indoor Stadium.
there at Duke. It's not too far.
Would
so
he
could-
dress as Beaker though?
Who's your number 2?
The ghost of Tupac.
You want hologram Tupac? You want an actual
in the
ghost.
Jeff Capel jersey?
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Or Jason Capel. Jason Capel.
Yeah, in the Capel jersey.
Yeah.
No, it was the
Ghost of
Jeff
Tupac.
Capel jersey.
Jason.
Number 5.
Jeff went to Duke.
Jeff went to Duke.
yeah.
Jeff went to Duke.
It's
So
all
that's
right.
what you want.
All the Capels.
Yes, Ghost of Tupac.
Who's your number 2, Joe?
My number 2 is Philip Shepard. You may be asking who Philip Shepard is.
Who's that?
He is the judge who ruled in the lawsuit between Duke and Louisville that indeed Duke is so bad that you could replace them with anyone
Yeah.
and not skip a beat.
Legend.
A legend.
An absolute Duke legend. Speaking of Duke legends, I'm going Steve Spurrier as my number 2.
The
Got to bring
quitter.
the old ball coach back. I'm
The
sure
quitter.
he'll have some lines to crack on game day. Everybody will enjoy it. I don't know. Maybe he'll say something that'll upset a coach like Lou Holtz did last week.
It
then a
is
man
old coach, no country for old coach. So
And then somebody will look in the camera directly and be like, "Come at me, Steve Spurrier." That's what I'm looking for. All right, LK, you're number 1. Duke guest picker.
So this is a really niche answer.
Joe just went Duke lawyer. I mean, come on.
No, this is
Even more.
this is even more niche because you had to have been in college in the early aughts to even see this video on YouTube. But it's the 4 Duke students that do the parody to R. Kelly's Ignition remix. I would want them.
I know what thing you're talking about. In post edit, I might have to bring it up.
Yes, I think you should.
Okay, so that's your number 1. Do you want them to do the Ignition remix?
I want them
there
to
at
do
the
the.
set?
I want them to do the beep beep. Yeah. Okay.
All right, Joe, you're number 1.
I mean, he was only there for 11 games, but once you're in the brotherhood, you're always in the brotherhood.
Oh, dear.
Kyrie Irving.
Jeez.
Flat Earth, this thing. Let's go.
I would just love to see the outfit he would
Let's
rock.
go.
Oh, that's a particular thing. My number 1 Duke guest picker, Tony Romo, because I think he just brings everybody together. Here's the Dallas Cowboys quarterback who loved showing up at Cameron Indoor Stadium for Duke basketball games. So you get you bring in that Dallas Cowboy fandom, and we know what Dallas Cowboy fans are all about.
Duke basketball.
Duke basketball. Bring it in all together. All right, LK, it's time to spin the prize wheel.
But I don't win any. I didn't win.
I don't know. I liked your top 4 at 4, so I think you get to spin the prize wheel. I enjoyed that.
Should we fix
Plus,
the prize wheel?
Here's
or-
the other
Consolation
thing.
prize.
You came all the way out here, so
I
damn
did.
it, we're gonna spin.
I drove
Yeah, we can see it. Okay,
Yeah.
we can see it.
all the way from Cary.
For some people, to come from Cary to Raleigh is a big deal.
That's true.
State Farm.
Oh, sweet. I used them already.
Tumbler.
I still get a tumbler.
Legit. That was legit.
That was
spin.
legit. Right on State Farm. So there you go.
Which one?
It's sitting right there under the on-air sign. It's in a box. So there you go.
That's you.
That's you. What you need, more tumblers. Might replace that other one that you might have. All right, LK. Thanks for hanging out. Go higher, LK.
Please.
Let's get out of here with some Hey Joe questions. Thanks to Oakwood Pizza Box. Check them out. OakwoodPizzaBox.com. Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. They make amazing pizza. They've got that special, which has got the honey with the pepperoni and the jalapenos. That's money. I absolutely love that one. Square pizzas are my go-to. And I know a mutual friend of ours always says he likes to judge pizza places by their white pizza.
Okay.
And he had their white pizza and went, okay, yeah, that's pretty legit. Enjoyed that. Let's go to YouTube. YouTube was pretty active yesterday. One correction. I missed this. I guess at one point you said that Kevin White hired Mike Elko.
Was that Nina?
That was a Nina King hire.
Okay.
That was one of those things.
Great hire.
It was one of those things where I was probably trying to go on to the next thing and I totally missed it. But yes, Nina King made that hire. Hey, Nina King so far with Mike Elko and how the John Shire situation all played out. Was that really her say though? Or was that Coach K say?
I mean, not negatively.
Not
just
negatively.
K,
Not
yeah,
negatively.
that K absolutely.
So I want to get to there was a long form from a gentleman named Wolfpacker, and he hit us with 4 points in relation to our conversation about NC State and expectations and things like that. The part that I found interesting was his point 3. He says, mine, and I think the majority of State fans' grievances are with the offense. We were sold a bill of goods with Brennan Armstrong and Robert and I that has us with some buyer's remorse. So you can't get pushed around against UConn and a bad UVA team. JMU and Maryland could run on UVA, a stable of TEs, tight ends, that we haven't used. We just flipped the North Carolina tight end, who will be flipping back shortly. Okay, got it. And then, of course, you talked about some Dave Dorn stuff, like the smug "be happy" comment. Hopefully take it with him to Nebraska after this year. I think that was
smug.
I don't think it was smug. Like I said yesterday, it had big. I've been here 11 years, man. This is like not the year that, this is a rebuilding year. And hey, man, we won. Like, got to move on. We won. And I know people have been pointing this out to us. I've had several people reach out to us saying, how is that not on a t-shirt yet? Shit. Just be happy we won.
That was not smug, though.
I didn't look at it as smug.
No.
Either. I didn't look at it as smug. But again, I don't
really think of Dave as smug, do you?
Sometimes, look, there's two Daves. I've said this multiple times.
Yeah.
There's two Daves. There's the interview Dave, and then there's when the camera's off Dave. All right. And there have been times where Dave Dorn's delivery on some stuff has come across as not great. All right. I didn't view this one as that. I just viewed this as reality.
Seems like the wrong word.
I just viewed it as reality.
Yeah.
All right. That's how I viewed that. But I do think that there are some issues here with Dave Dorn that ties back to our conversation with Andrew Carter, in that when you're at a place for 11 years, after a while, you start looking around and you want the excitement. You want to feel a little thrill. Man, game day's going to Duke. Hell, they've gone to a championship game, North Carolina. You get caught up in recruiting. But and I've seen this before. Dave Dorn only has a job because of what has happened the last 2 years with North Carolina. These dramatic wins. Flip those games and Dave Dorn's out of here. But isn't that what you want? Don't you want to beat Carolina? I thought that was part of the job.
Right.
And they've done that consistently, recruiting aside, hype aside. So it's a complicated conversation. I'm not saying anybody's right or wrong. After 11 years, you're not changing anybody's mind. All right.
Right.
You're not changing.
I think people are square
mind.
with who Dave is.
Pretty much. I'm square with who he is.
Sure.
Most people are, and you're not changing any minds at this point. From Scott, as a UNC fan, I'm saying don't count State out. UVA had a lot to play for. He's right about that. State will be fine. Those idiot calls on the receiver screens were terrible for Clemson. That coach sounded drunk explaining why he wouldn't send his guy out. Yeah, there's a little bit of that. From a Florida State fan, Jordan Travis was hurt, which is one reason the running game is not good. There's no threat of him keeping it. Fair point. O-line has injuries. Man, look across college football. There's O-line injuries everywhere. FSU hasn't played a complete game yet. At what point will they? Okay. The loss of Akeem Dunn is a bigger deal than it might look. That being said, Clemson blew the game. Thank you. So we all agree. I mean, we can all agree that Clemson blew the game.
Oh, the scoop and score is the play of the game.
Yeah. That game should have been over. And from State fan, Doran said on his radio show that they were redshirting MJ Morris. It's not a secret. Message is clear. Is it though?
No, it's not okay. Listen, there's a difference between explaining yourself and however many multiple, chances you've had in the public, and then going on the radio show and be like, well, yeah, we're going to redshirt. Well, obviously, you should have said that, though, in the spring.
Yes.
But when you added Brennan and saying, hey, here's our plan, which I did. I remember going on a program and explaining, here's what they're actually trying to accomplish. And I tried to do their work for them. But
can I peel back the curtain on coaches' shows on the radio?
Yeah, go ahead.
Nobody listens to them.
Yeah.
Do you know what people end up listening to and getting most of their information from? The press availabilities on a Monday,
right,
or a post game. The coaches' show are a completely different thing. You got a hardcore group of people who are listening to coaches' shows, but not the massive people that listen to coaches' show. It's a wonder that you have some people on the beat that listen to the coaches' show to get some of the stuff. Plus, the coaches' shows are a little bit more jovial, and you might get a different attitude from the coaches on those radio shows. Anyway, that's going to wrap it up for today's edition. We will see you Wednesday.